This is One-on-One. We're pleased to welcome back our good friend, Vaughn L. McKoy, author, mentor, motivational speaker, author of Playing Up and the Coaches Playbook and teaching resource. Good to see you, Vaughn.
Glad to be back, Steve. Thank you.
We're here at the New Jersey Performing Arts Center here in beautiful Newark, New Jersey. Newark has a special connection for you?
Absolutely.
You know you're a Patterson guy, right?
Well, you know, Newark has become almost my second home.
Yeah. Let's talk about this. Playing Up, one man's rise from public housing to public service through mentorship. Is mentorship the theme all the way through?
Absolutely. I mean, I think it talks about, ever since I was 8 years old, the various people who played a huge role in my life. And although I didn't view them as mentors then, writing the book, looking back, you know, they certainly had those mentorship characteristics and the mentorship role in my life. And so I wanted to tell the story as a tribute to them, you know, teachers, coaches, you know, my mom, family members, and then obviously Mr. G, who becomes a central figure in the book once I got to college and really, you know, helped open my eyes and really kind of took me under his wing. And then that's when it really hit home for me about what mentorship can do and can mean in the lives of individuals.
And this, Playing Up, this is the Coaches Playbook and teaching resources. Describe for folks what is in here and why it's so significant.
Well, you know, I wanted to do something more than just write a book that people would say it's a great story. How do we get this story out? How do we embed it in the minds and the psyche of young people? And so my wife, who's an educator, lifelong educator, decided that we should write this playbook. And
Your wife, Marnie? My
wife, Marnie, who's been an educator in Newark, in Patterson, and also at the Pingree School. So she engaged a friend of hers, Dr. Angela Gonzalez, and together we set out on a course to develop a teaching tool or a resource that can be used in the classroom. You know, when I was a kid, there was always a workbook that went along with the textbook. And that workbook, you know, you can write in and you could, you know, do different exercises in. And so we thought it would be a neat tool for teachers to have in the classroom because it would take some of the work and some of the mystery out of the book. If we created something that was turnkey, that would allow them to kind of go along with the lessons with the kids.
On mentorship. Give us an example.
Well, you know, it's really about leadership and building relationships. I mean, mentorship at its core is about building relationships with people, right? And so I think a lot of times, you know, young people, particularly in our inner cities, you know, struggle with building relationships and trustful relationships and meaningful relationships. And there are studies that show that people and kids, particularly who have meaningful relationships, tend to do better. And so by using that book as a resource to show how I successfully built relationships, you know, with people over time, that kind of helped me to achieve the goals and objectives that I set for myself. And I think a lot of people have to understand that nobody gets to where they are by themselves. You know, they always need help. And for a lot of people, it's very difficult to ask for that help. It was difficult for me because you always think that somebody has an angle.
What do you mean by that?
Well, you know, when Mr. G came into my life.
Tell everyone who Mr. G was.
Mr. G, Arthur Goldberg, phenomenal individual who was a businessman, a philanthropist in this state for many, many years, ran publicly traded companies, was very philanthropic, and he was a Rutgers graduate who worked out in the weight room.
And give everyone your Rutgers connection.
Rutgers football player, you know, had a big win the other night.
By the way, we're doing this after the big win. 55-52. Yeah, it was a big win late. Yeah. By the way, it's in the middle of the Big Ten move is happening. They're playing the #1 team as we listen. A lot of things will happen between now and when this show airs.
Ohio State, yeah.
But we're still rooting for Rutgers. But
Absolutely.
You have a Rutgers connection. Mr. G came into your life. You're in the weight room, working out at Rutgers as a ball player. What happens?
And I mentioned to one of the coaches that I wanted to be a lawyer, and Mr. G was a lawyer. The coach made the connection, and then he just started to mentor me and hold me accountable for what I said I wanted to do. Very suspicious, and that's what I was talking about. Here's a guy who's at the top of his game in corporate America.
The fact that he was white, did it matter?
It did at that point because, you know, in my community, you know, coming up in Patterson, New Jersey, you were distrustful of white people and white men in particular. They were the police, they were the prosecutors, they were, you know, different things. And so I was very skeptical, like, why do you want me? You know, what can I do for you? And so it took me a while to really see the authenticity and the genuine concern that he had for me as a person. But that was me. imagine, you know, other people in different circumstances, when that comes along, it's very difficult to establish that foundation of trust. And so I think it makes it very difficult to build relationships without trust. And so playing up is really about, you know, how to build relationships.
Playing up, explain it again. When you were with us last time when the book first came out in hardcover.
Yeah.
The
playing up. It's a metaphor that's used a lot in sports. But
is a kid going to play up?
That's right.
What does that mean?
So I've defined it. And playing up simply means, you know, using all of your talents, your skills, your gifts, and your abilities to solve a problem or to leverage an opportunity. In that book, if you go through each chapter, I had to make a decision how I was going to use everything in me to solve a problem or to leverage an opportunity, or in other words, I had to play up.
So the coach's guide, the teacher's playbook, teaching playbook, give us one concrete example that goes beyond the book and would actually help from an educational point of view.
Right, so the book is broken down into different segments, right? So there's true, false, multiple choice, short answers, group prompts, essay prompts, and writing lessons. And so kids really have a chance to interact with me and get into the mindset that I had, you know, in making decisions in that book so that they can learn from them. Some good decisions, you know, and some poor decisions. And so it's really a way, you know, for them to kind of interact and to discuss in a group setting, you know, with the teacher or with a peer, what was Vaughn thinking, you know, at the time he made that choice? You know, what was he thinking at the time he didn't make that choice? You know, how come Vaughn turned out differently than some of the other characters that he grew up with, you know, in that book?
And what does it mean to these young people?
And what does it mean to them, right? So then, you know, they began to see themselves in the book. And another reason why we wrote the playbook was to make sure that, you know, we provided, you know, young people with some alternatives about what they could be. You know, because many times in our communities, you know, we promote the rappers, you know, the sports figures, you know, the entertainers, and those professions are fine. But a lot of those kids, Steve, will never reach that level. You know, I was a college football player. I didn't make it to the pros. And there are a lot of people who played with me that didn't make it to the pros. So the kids have to know that you can have a great lifestyle as an attorney, as a physician, as a nurse, as an educator, as a journalist. And so I really, you know, wanted to show them you can do all of those things, you know, and you're successful even if, you know, you don't have an opportunity to play professional or be an entertainer or an actor or a rapper or something like that.
Vaughn, how challenging has it been getting into the schools and having the playbook play out in the educational system? Well,
you know what? Most schools have been receptive. I mean, you know, one of the things we did in Patterson, you know, we donated 5,500 books to the city of Patterson public schools.
Over 5,000.
Over 5,000 books. We donated it. And, you know, I was able to raise money from family and friends of mine to purchase the books, and we donated them. And so the city of Patterson now is using the book in their public schools in their 8th grade curriculum, and they rolled it out a few weeks ago. And there's a charter school in Patterson, the Community Charter School of Patterson. They're using the book. And so I have proposals out to other, you know, school districts as well, because we really believe that, you know, this tool as a turnkey resource can be used in the classroom and an after-school program. So, you know, the Boys and Girls Clubs, you know, Big Brothers, Big Sisters, any youth program at a church. And so the content is adaptable, you know, for anyone who's working with young people.
And your next book?
Wow, I'm working on a book called Rookie. Rookie, yeah. And Rookie is an allegory, and it's about a rookie, this young man who's being mentored by a very successful businessman. And there are 12 lessons. And in Rookie, I go through, you know, the 12 powerful mentee tools that I've learned from a mentee's perspective. And at the end of each chapter, there's a little worksheet that people can kind of work through. And to go back to your first point, the first chapter in Rookie is called vulnerability. You know, and being vulnerable, and that the first step to developing a successful mentoring relationship is to be vulnerable. I had to open myself up, you know, to a white Jewish man who was there to help me, but I had to be open to that, and I had to be vulnerable and willing to expose something. And so that's very, very important.
Powerful stuff. Before I let you go real quick, you and I talk leadership all the time, on and off the air, but right now, number one leadership lesson you've learned so far is?
Following your passion. Following your passion. Because in your passion, you can be the leader that no one else can be. And so leadership to me is following your passion, pursuing your dreams, and make sure you're leading the way for other people.
And playing up one man's rise from public housing to public service through mentorship. Coaches Playbook and teaching resource, Vaughn McKoy. The book, the playbook, it's all good stuff. It's making a difference in the lives of thousands of kids, and we wish you nothing but the best, our friend Vaughn McKoy.
Thank you, Steve.
Keep
Appreciate
it up. All right, stay with us. One-on-one from the beautiful New Jersey Performing Arts Center in the heart of Newark, New Jersey. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Thanks, Vaughn.
Thank you.
One-on-One with Steve Autobato at NJ PAC has been a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation, celebrating over 25 years of broadcast excellence, and by the New Jersey Performing Arts Center, in cooperation with NJTV and 13 for WNET. Funding for this edition of One-on-One with Steve Autobato at NJ PAC has been provided by TD Bank, Cone Resnick, Gibbons PC, Josh S. Weston, the Fidelco Group, the Northward Center, and by Prudential Financial's Global Communications Department. Promotional support provided by NJ.com, Small News, Big News, True Jersey. And by NJ Biz, all business, all New Jersey. Transportation provided by Airbrook Limousine, serving the metropolitan New York, New Jersey area.